From a young age, we are trained to treat spoken words as our primary currency. If someone says they are fine, we believe them. We rely on language to tell us what is real, assuming that what comes out of a person's mouth is an open door to their mind. But usually it's locked tight. Because we trust the script, we end up blindsided. We are left confused and hurt when people act irrationally, or when their actions suddenly contradict the virtues they spend all day talking about. Long before he became a mainstream cultural figure, a young Friedrich Nietzsche noticed this disconnect. He warned that language is a tool of the ego. We use words to ensure our survival, to maintain our status, and to keep ourselves safe, rather than to express truth. So when someone's story doesn't add up, they aren't usually executing a malicious lie against you. They are reciting a highly rehearsed script because they are hiding from themselves. To survive the pressures of society, people build a mask. This armor is forged out of very specific terrors: the fear of being rejected by the group, the dread of losing social status, and the deep, paralyzing threat of public humiliation. The personality you see in front of you is rarely a stable, permanent thing. It is an improvised, stitched-together performance designed entirely to navigate those fears and keep the person safe. Take the person who constantly appears overly kind and accommodating. Look closer, and you will often find someone terrified of being alienated. That extreme agreeableness is a shield meant to ward off rejection before it can even happen. Reading a person requires a shift in focus. You stop attending to the carefully written script and start hunting for the exact moments the armor fails. We call these failures leaks. Because the mask isn't perfect, the reality underneath it has to escape somehow. The moment a person feels their constructed identity is threatened, the truth leaks out of the body through involuntary physical tension. You can spot this tension if you know what to look for. It's the unnatural, heavy pause before someone answers a simple question. It's the nervous laugh that goes on a few seconds too long, or the way they suddenly pivot away from a topic that hits too close to home. But the most revealing leak of all was one of Nietzsche's sharpest insights: projection. Here is how projection works. When someone harbors an intense, vocal hatred for a specific trait in someone else, they are rarely observing reality. Instead, they are making a desperate, unconscious confession about a flaw they are terrified exists within themselves. Think of the constant critic, the man who mocks anyone showing emotion, or the woman who endlessly belittles others for their appearance. They are locked in a secret, painful war with their own reflection, trying to destroy in others what they cannot accept in themselves. When you want to understand the engine behind a person's behavior, ignore what they openly admire. Pay strict attention to exactly what they compulsively attack. That is where they are hurting. This brings us to the paradox of overcompensation. The loudest surface traits a person displays are specifically engineered to mask their exact opposite. We see this clearly with excessive virtue signaling. The person who loudly proclaims their purity and constantly corrects everyone around them is usually disguising intense vanity. Their morality is a weapon used to satisfy a hidden hunger for superiority over others. This handwritten manuscript from Nietzsche confirms his intense focus on this behavior. Down here in the bottom paragraph, he targets the moral predicans, the moral preachers. He documented firsthand how loud public virtue acts as a cover for deep hypocrisy. You'll notice the same pattern in how people speak. When someone constantly claims, "I don't care at all what anyone thinks," they almost certainly care deeply. Extreme exaggeration is simply the ego raising its volume to drown out severe internal doubt. The equation is remarkably consistent. The louder, more confident, and absolute a person's performance is, the more fragile the insecurity they are trying to bury. People who obsessively dominate conversations and micromanage their environment are mistaken as strong, but that rigid exterior is built reacting to terrifying inner chaos. When their internal world feels out of control, unyielding outer shells are required because the emotional core is highly volatile. So the next time you encounter a hyper-controlling boss or micromanaging partner, you shouldn't see power. You should see someone terrified that if they let go for a single second, the whole structure will fall apart. We like to think of humans as rational creatures, arguing based on facts and making decisions based on reason. But supposedly objective logic is almost always a retroactive shield used to protect an emotional wound. If someone insists that love is a foolish fantasy, they aren't stating an objective fact. People formulate their rigid worldviews strictly based on past hurts. They construct philosophies out of what they desperately need to avoid feeling ever again. This applies to our daily patterns as well. Common behaviors, like ghosting to avoid intimacy or demanding the spotlight, are reenactments of survival scripts we all carry from childhood. Human behavior is a living biography. Every action reveals who the adult had to be as a child to feel safe. Seeing past the mask is a pursuit of empathy. It allows you to bypass the arrogant adult and reach the terrified child beneath. When you can clearly recognize the fear operating behind the bully and the deep guilt hiding behind the arrogance, something shifts. You become unshakable, and anger is instantly replaced with profound compassion. This process inevitably turns the mirror back on the observer. You begin to recognize your own leaks, the moments you overcompensate or project your own fears onto the people around you. Once you see how these masks function, they lose their power to deceive. You gain the clarity to recognize your own armor for what it is, a survival mechanism that you can finally choose